Call this meeting to order. This is an official Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, September 6th, 2018. It's a little after 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gary Talbert.
Here.
Mr. Bubba Harris.
Here.
Mr. John Lawson.
Here.
Mr. Shane Mack.
Here. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss some possible modifications to our subdivision ordinance 1355-1, where we were going to request multiple entrances and exits for subdivisions being constructed in Livingston Parish, where the lots were 200 lots or more. We was going to require that, and the entrances would need to be 50 foot apart. And we need to discuss the pros and cons of making this change, and we welcome any feedback, and we're going to move forward with this. So tonight, if you want to talk about this, if you have some input, what we need to do is try to be more formal, is come to the podium, because we're trying to record this, you know, for the public to be able to hear and see what's going on over here in this ordinance committee meeting. And we ran into trouble last time. We couldn't really hear what people were saying, and so it was an issue. So still less formal than a regular council meeting, but we do need to hear what you have to say. So happy those that came to help us get this ordinance in the condition that needs to be in. Okay, that being said, does anybody want to open up as to for or against, or if it's okay to make these changes? I mean, I personally think they're good. It's a positive change. I think it's a lot of good reasons to make this change, you know. I mean, the biggest one to me would be, you know, for safety reasons. You know, if you only have one entrance and one exit and you had a 500 lot subdivision, you in that particular entrance or exit got blocked for some particular reason, the people behind that block would be, you know, no way to get out. You know, we ran into some issues during the 2016 flood where people were trapped and couldn't get out. On the other hand, we talked in the past, and there may be some issues when we go to require this on state highways. So I think we're going to discuss that tonight. If there are those that have some input, some more expertise on that type of stuff. So I guess, to be honest with you, does anybody have anything to say about this modification?
Yeah. You want me to come up here?
I guess, Tracy, I mean.
Tracy Garland House, 28300 Walker, Louisiana. The oasis of Livingston Parish, Walker, Louisiana. Yeah, this was something that came to my attention in the worst of manners. I didn't understand that the requirement was, well, there was really no requirement in this parish. You can put as many houses as you can fit within the ordinance itself on a neighborhood and have one entrance. 1,200, 12,000. You could build you could imagine as such. Legally, we couldn't stop you for one entrance. So this was brought to my attention because of a neighborhood, a sizable neighborhood going in my district that was 300 plus houses, one entrance, one long narrow entrance. Now, in no way we don't punish contractors that are just wanted to set that right. We weren't gonna hold them to that, but they did bring to attention something that that needed to be rectified. So, in doing so, we tried to come up with a number that was good. Me and Mr. Talbert were talking, and I think he had got the information from someone that I guess the federal, was it the fire standard?
Yeah, the national safety standard
is 199. That's to me, still seems kind of high, but we can't go wrong going to at least that, 199, you know, across the board. and if we know 200 plus, you got to have one entrant. You got to have at least two entrances and exits, respectively. In speaking with Mr. Talbert and in speaking with a few other people in engineering firms and stuff that do the neighborhoods, they said that there are some other issues that come into play, like if one road comes out on a parish road and one comes out on a state road, and help me with this, Gary, the state might not allow the one on the state road because you already have one entrance.
I think they do an access, the state started what's called access management policy they've got, and they've just got some guidelines that you got to require. And so, and I guess, Eddie, you can, I mean,
Thomas.
Billy or Thomas, you can either one can shine light on this. Basically, if we have a subdivision and we want an entrance on a state road and we require a second entrance on a parish road, could they actually deny access to the state road?
They can.
So I guess what we just gonna have to be aware, I guess, you know, we always talk about not backing ourselves into a corner. I mean, I think, you know, we need to move forward with the ordinance, but
Yes.
we need to be aware that there's gonna come times when we could actually hinder, you know, a subdivision because we could put an entrance on a substandard, you know, parish road and in lieu of a, you know, better state highway and create a worse situation for ourselves. So I think that in our discussion, you know, when we did the introduction, that's why we kind of delayed it for, you know, 4 weeks before we're going to hear it or 5 weeks at the council. So we got this meeting. We talked about connectivity because I think our current ordinance kind of eliminates it. Doesn't it? It doesn't really want you to. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say.
Tommy, come
But
on.
you gotta,
Yeah.
I mean,
Thomas with Alvin Fairman Associates, but I mean, I guess your goodest example was them right there just a few minutes ago. That was your biggest one. I don't want that subdivision tied into my road. And that would have been a perfect example, you know, Hidden Lakes, which is right by her, is 316 lots. When it was originally designed, it had one entrance to Brown Road, and that was it. We could have easily tied into Gorney Hood Road right there. I mean, we had access to it. It backed up to our property. We could have tied into it. It could have been a secondary entrance. But her and the entire, you know, Melinda Lane, Gorney Hood, Priscilla would have been here fighting that entrance, that tie-in. But y'all, the parish would have required us to have two entrances. And that would have been our secondary entrance.
Well, Thomas, doesn't that subdivision have two entrances?
It does now. It
Yes.
does now, Mr. Harris. But that's only because the current owners that bought the property actually bought another piece of property that fronted on Joe May Road.
Right.
And they're using that as a secondary entrance.
Thomas, I have a question. And when we were here last meeting, we talked about these problems, and Eddie Idell was here, and he said he would be interested in drawing up a little draft ordinance, a draft ordinance for us. But like these people here that didn't want their subdivision tied in to another road, by no means would we, do you think it would be a good idea that we supported that with the current neighborhoods and subdivisions? However, for future developments, when there's no houses located in a specific subdivision or development, if the parish required two entrances or connecting major roads, then when the lot got sold, that person knows going in that I'm buying this house, that there's two entrances and exits to this subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
So it would still be a good thing to adopt an ordinance like that.
Oh, absolutely.
But
And
not go back
No.
to subdivisions that already have one.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, Baton Rouge, you know, requires the engineer that any adjacent property around the development, if it's vacant land of significant acreage or something like that, that could possibly be another residential development, the developer has to put a tie onto that property and build a road to that lot line. And then if somebody did buy the adjacent property and developed it, that developer has a tie into that road.
It creates
You know, it creates its own,
Connectivity,
it
yeah.
creates its own connectivity.
So that is a good ordinance to move forward with and adopt that.
I have no problem with that at all.
Go to the second page. Go under the ordinance deal, and Eddie kind of typed. That's Eddie's letter
That's
that
correct.
Eddie
That's
kind of
correct.
typed up because he wasn't be here. If you go down to you see the bullet points at the bottom, 2 paragraphs above that. Eddie addresses the situation that we're just seeing on the Garney Hood deal, and I'm gonna tell you, I've got a situation that went through planning last night, and I'm gonna catch some flack over it because of. They're introducing the 8th filing of Oak Hills, and Oak Hills has had one entrance forever. They're gonna tie the 8th filing of Oak Hills into Rhonda Drive, which Rhonda then, you turn on to Arlene, and from Arlene you turn on to Caraway, and from Caraway you get to 1019. But there's gonna be some people complain about that. But the situation is, we had a subdivision that's behind the bridge. The majority of the homeowners are behind the bridge, that when the flood came, I mean, the sheriff had an employee in there they had to send their helicopter after, to go get. I mean, that's just a fact, so, I mean, so if you'll read Eddie's note, he says, there will also be instances where the public will be adamantly against connection to their subdivision or street, even though it makes good engineering sense to do so. In some instances, the positive traffic impact may outweigh the negative social impact to an adjacent street or subdivision. Meaning that, I don't know how many people live on Garney Hood. I don't know.
Enough to, that we had some.
Well, I mean, but
yeah,
wait a second. I mean, I've seen in the city of Denham, one lady whose kid plays in the street stop a subdivision from tying into another subdivision. I mean, you know what I'm talking about? It can, one person can, if you don't adopt a philosophy to move forward with, one loud person can stop, a good engineering, common sense move. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. So
that's your pros and your cons. Do you stop development in Livingston Parish because that piece of that 100 acres or the 200 lots only has one access point, but could possibly have 2? But then you have the people on that road that would be your second access point, throw such a fit. So,
But if you adopt the ordinance and you make it applicable to new development, then you shouldn't have that problem.
well, the people that live on that road is what's going to be the, it's going to be your people that are going to be crying about it.
Like Oak Hills is a specific example. The submission that Brian and them made, I don't know how that would have worked in that situation. When did y'all have did y'all just have your preliminary, or you had your preliminary?
No, just had it, and then that subdivision was approved probably in 1970. But it did provide a right of way to that property.
Right, so I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that Rhonda Drive's been around since the 70s, and it accessed that piece of property. So in essence, there's going to be some people who have lived on Rhonda Drive with little or no traffic. They're going to be mad as hell at me. Make no mistake about it, because I'm going to know why I stopped that development. But there's a whole nother benefit, when you look at people getting cut off from a fire in the main entrance at Oak Hills, or the flood or whatever. They can then have access out of the back. So, I mean, I know that there are times that, that there's a small group that makes a lot of noise, but the benefit to the whole, I think, is sometimes how you got to weigh these things. So,
Well, if I could say something.
Yeah.
I think that we, as a council, should view this as, if you put in a development and it's got 200 houses, and you should have actively trying to, or 210 houses, you need to actively find 2 entrances and not be that 20-house neighborhood that's been there since the 70s. It's nice and quaint.
That's not the problem.
That is not the problem. Now, you can put 2 exits on one road, and you can connect it and gate it off purely for emergency, if it makes sense. If you have 2 developments that are very big, and it's in the corner, so I think if it's in the corner of 2 intersections and you can connect them to where you could get out either way, this is going to be a case-by-case basis, guys. I mean, but where I can see, though, neighborhood, 25 houses. And, you know, it's all, you kind of make a little circle, and then developer comes in and buys 250 acres behind it, and then he wants to turn your little circle into one of his 2 required exits. No, sir. No, sir. Now, I think we need to have connectivity. Absolutely. But the developer in the future, because none of this has happened yet, they need to say, look, and look, and it might be one of those situations where you're connecting like into a big neighborhood, Woodland Crossing, you know, which is a ridiculously big neighborhood, but you know, maybe that's got a good example. And you want to do 40 houses over here, and you can use one outlet. Are you connected? That makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, but I can also see where it wouldn't, where you could kind of destroy the whole ambiance of this little neighborhood. You know, it's got a little U-shaped drive, just so a developer, you know, whoever,
Let me ask you a question.
in the future wants to try to use that neighborhood as his traffic flow spilling point. And I could see where, yeah, we do need connectivity, and we do need to come at that a little more aggressive, you know, but I could also see where you require the developers to try, you know, if you got to give up 2 or 3 lot spots to put another exit there, so be it.
Oh, and I don't think developers, I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue most of the time, or what's going to raise its head ugly later, I mean, its head later on is, you know, depending on where you have to go. Look,
Yeah,
back when
traffic.
Crown Zellerbach started selling all that road frontage, you know what I'm talking about? We got tons of, what were they, 60, 80-foot lots, you know what I'm talking about? That there's an 80-foot section of property that accesses 100 acres, you know, in the back, and that's it. That's the only access to that 100 acres is that 80-foot lot. And so, under this ordinance, the way we're structuring it, you know, we might have, you know, little old lady that's been my, you know, I'm getting ready to retire, that's my nest egg, and all of a sudden now, nobody wants it because I've got one entrance into it. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you, that's why when I think when Eddie said be flexible and look at, you know, site-by-site situations.
Absolutely, and I agree. It needs to be you have to understand, I'm all for connectivity because that's what's best for everybody in the long run, for the parish as a whole. But I can also see where where a developer could say, look, we can just use one, we can connect here. You know, it's not a foregone conclusion. I think that you need to, you know, obviously look at it and go, well, why didn't you just put an exit right here? This stuff that the council, us as the council or the future councils can look at and go, you might, you know, it might make sense. I get it, because they don't want to have to give up space to put another entrance, but at the same time, you know, if you have one entrance, and I think too, in some situations, if you have a neighborhood that's got less than 100 and whatever we set it to, 199, so it's got 150, and they can do it with one entrance. There should be connectivity, but gated, because it depending, like with
Gated.
Oak Hills, gated, like to where it's not normally used, but for emergency purposes, you can open it up.
I mean, to an extra.
Yeah, you know, if it makes sense connected to another neighborhood, you don't necessarily just open that up for there, but you can at least access it if there's an emergency. Somebody, you know, you can do it in those regards. So it's one of those things where it's going to be fluid. We're going to have to figure it out. But I think we all kind of agree that a change must, as far as the requirement goes, must happen.
I think the understanding this needs to be that the 2 entrances, you know, we create a standard at 200, 2 entrances, but that there are going to be situations where they bring a 215 lot subdivision to us and say, here's the deal. I can go here on the parish road and here in the state road, and I very well could lose the state entrance, you know, given that situation. So being this is a substandard parish road, or, you know, we would be better off dumping with one into the state. I mean, you follow what I'm talking about?
Sure.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Long response. My name's Jonathan Appling. I live at 33429 Duff Road.
Along the lines of what he was saying, and what you're saying, if say there's a dirt road or something, you could block that entrance off and only use it when necessary. There also needs to be something along the lines of safety for pedestrians, like children at school stops, and they're out. I see them out by the road, and making allowance for a school bus to get off the road in order to not inhibit traffic, like going to work during peak hours of the day. I work in Baton Rouge, and it's 12 miles from my house in Walker to Baton Rouge over on Flannery Road. It takes me 50 minutes to get there because just the sheer volume of traffic. But I notice there's no shoulders, and it's to my understanding that there's been 4 people killed in Livingston Parish by walking along the side of the road. And that's just something that's hit home with me, because sometimes I do pick up people on the side of the road just so that they don't get hit. It's just as far as connecting one entrance to another entrance to from one subdivision to another, I can understand what Mr. Girlinghouse was saying about maybe making that a gated entrance to the second subdivision and maybe only allow the people that live in that one subdivision maybe an access card or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
You can't gate off a public road, so to speak. It's because it's open, but you could make it to where, I guess it wouldn't actually be a road. It would just be an access for emergency purposes. You wouldn't be able to name it. You wouldn't be able to use it for
you're talking about a private drive though, right?
Well, you could just
say it's a
the
servitude or
neighborhood
something.
there and
Right
that's
away
what I'm saying, where your neighborhood entrance ends.
or you could use it for access. Because trust me, like during the flood, if there was you could have drove across a field to get into Oak Hills, they'd have been driving across that field.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, and after that, we've actually, there's kind of an unwritten situation right now that if there was an emergency at the back of Oak Hills, you could access it through the old sewer treatment thing across the gravel pit. I mean, there's arrangements right now for emergency response vehicles to get to Oak Hills if they need to. And it's kind of come out of the flood. You know what I'm talking about? After the flood, we realized but what I'm saying, that was something that didn't exist until, the problem was created. And the ironic thing about Oak Hills is, I think about the third filing when Mr. Thomason was, had bought that lot off that circle. There was a design that included another entrance, and the people in the front threw a fit, and he punted on that, other entrance deal. And then, 5 filings later, all of a sudden everybody wants to know when the parish is going to provide another entrance. So I think that, people at times don't, look at I think the general public at times doesn't look at the long-term view of something, and they look at the immediate now gratification in my situation and don't realize, the long term. Because what was ironic is I would ask those people, how many entrances were Oak Hills when you bought that lot? Well, 1. And they were amazed that I was offended with the fact that that we wouldn't even consider putting another entrance in. You know what I'm talking about? So, I mean, it's going to happen now, but I think that when you see a subdivision develop, you don't have any idea how big it has the potential to be. You know what I'm talking about? Right. Nobody would have ever dreamed that we would have ever. I think, Billy, when y'all did the 6th filing, you thought that was going to be it. Had no idea that 7 and 8 were coming behind it. You know what I'm talking about? So, I mean, I think that we got to come up with some plan of, this is what we want to have happen, and then we have a situation that doesn't work, then we're going to use the waiver thing and a little common sense to, to create a situation. But I definitely believe that in the future, if we think that, subdivisions need to have a bus pickup thing, that's something we could consider. We might be better served with a bus pickup area in a subdivision than a green space or a parking area. You know what I'm talking about for future development. So I mean, that's something I think that we could always take under advisement. I think right now we need to address the two entrances and
Right.
kind of creating connectivity. But I definitely understand your situation along those lines.
Along the lines of what you just now speaking about, I noticed two words in here in the verbiage of the law. It says in section 13.551, in section A, it says 200 lots or more must have. That's a mandatory activity.
Well, I
was-
guess
I was
must
my-
have is
my
when
if
you
let me
develop,
finish, sir.
when you're designing, you must design it like that. And then when you realize it doesn't work, then you come to us and say, this won't work, or the state's gonna hammer on us, I need a waiver. And I mean, that's kind of how the council's operated
I was
for
about to
years.
finish.
Well, I'm sorry.
The word must have is mandatory. Maybe we could change that to may allow a minimum. That way it allows them to have one entrance if they desire it. And if they want to add another filing and it comes up to 200 lots, or if they want to add a gate at the back end so people from one neighborhood can't come in to another neighborhood, so be it. May allow, it gives them an option.
You can say, you can say must, and if the situation allows, the council can let it go through. I mean, they can go, well, we see that, we see it makes sense, and they can grant a waiver.
Right.
But, you know,
This gives contractors a leeway,
well, that
a lot of
lets them know
leeway
that's what's
in
up.
how they
right there.
want to design their subdivision.
Yes. Because we have to make a change.
Yeah.
You know,
We got
That
way
is-
too many one-street subdivisions in
Yes,
this,
we did.
in this,
Right.
in this parish. And the thing that happens with that one-street deal is, like, Garney Hood's a perfect example of a parish road that tied into vacant property. I mean, the person that owned that vacant property had as much access right to Garney Hood as the 20 or 30 families that lived on. In reality, it's a parish road that the property, you know, entered into, and so consequently, that person had as much access to it, yet political pressure at times lets us not do the things that we really ought to do. So what we need to do is create an ordinance that kind of promotes, you know, stuff that initially might seem to be a problem, you know what I'm talking about, in reality might be a benefit, because those individuals that live on Garney Hood who can only access 16 might find that there's an ability to access Brown Road and that other road, and it improves their quality of life that they didn't anticipate. So, I mean, I think that the parish is, and I'm not trying to pick on Garney Hood, I'm just using it as a specific example because it's come about. I think we got to come up with some standard to create, and then if some particular reason they can't meet it, and the reason's legitimate, then we can look back at it and say, okay, we need to, you know, maybe we need to give them a waiver, or we need to, you know, look at some consideration, or say, okay, we're going to give you, if your second entrance is an emergency entrance, we're going to let that slide right now, and then if any future development, then that thing's going to have to become permanent. I mean, I think there's all kind of ways to do it, but you got to start off with some standard that's applicable to everybody, and then if they can't meet it and they've got a legitimate reason, then I think we're 9, you know, capable individuals of understanding that and making a decision, you know, that we're out, you know, it doesn't make sense, and so, you know, we could do it.
Well, one thing about the, going back to Garney Hood.
Right, and I'm not trying, I'm just,
No,
you know.
the previous developer that wanted to come out to 16. Well, we had a discussion with them, and we tried to work out something with them. And we told them, said, y'all take and widen out Garney Hood Road, build it to parish specifications, then you can do that. But it was cost prohibitive.
No, I understand, and we talking about the same thing with the Oak Hill situation, is that the roads are parish roads, Well, what y'all figure out, Billy? They're 19, 20-footed places, or what?
Yeah, I'm just a couple of spot shots.
But there's some intersections. You know, we're gonna have to do some signage. We might have to do some striping. We might have to pour some little aprons to make the thing work. You know, to make it safe. But it's kind of.
Is this the draft ordinance that you put together?
I like the way it's worded. I think that you do need to drive positive change, you know, and get people thinking of, hey, how can I get 2 entrances and 2 exits, you know, and then maybe they communicate and they work out something that they maybe thought wasn't possible. And then in the end, if it's not possible, then you do have flexibility to come to the council or whatever and get that waiver. You know, I think that, like, for some instances, you may say on a state road, hey, the state won't give us the permit, we can only get in one way. But then you go and you develop that subdivision to where you got 2 entrances and 2 exits almost to the state highway, you know, as far as they'll let you go. But then when you get to that state right of way, you make it 1, and it's still, in the end, better access in and out all the way till you get to a short distance, instead of just having one main road, you know, a mile long, you know, this narrow, you know, stuff like that. Well, so I think that, I think it's a positive change.
The wording on what we got now is great.
I do too. I think
but I think there are 2 things we need. If we're going to encourage, if we're going to put this point in, we ought to do 2 other things. I think at the same time. I think that one line in the ordinance that basically prohibits, isn't there a line that basically prohibits tying one subdivision into another?
Well, guys, you know that I can't tell you how many times we've designed subdivisions connecting to existing subdivisions and existing small parish roads. Those people come out in droves against it, and we end up changing it at the request of those people in the parish, you know, the council's concurrence. And there are language in the ordinance, I think, in more than one place that discourages and prohibits you from connecting to existing parish roads in some cases if it wasn't shown on a previous preliminary plat. So I am 100% in favor of more connectivity and more
removing that?
entrances. Huh?
So you think we should remove that?
I think you should remove it, to be honest with you. Because you're not, that's not in the spirit of a good street network in the parish. And I think you should replace it with a requirement that developers provide access to adjacent properties at appropriate intervals. I think you should replace it with that, to be honest.
Can we slowly write down this and look this up and maybe catch it on another deal? Or y'all want to?
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
I don't know where. I guess
something. I'm just saying that I think we need to go a step further.
That's why I was hoping you put an old draft ordinance together.
Well, I guess my point is,
What's that?
Well, I did send you guys some.
Yeah, we got the notes. We read the notes. I guess my point is, I think this is great. But I think in the spirit of what this thing tries to do falls short of solving a bigger problem. And I hate that we create all these little ordinances, you know what I'm talking about, to solve I think that we need to, while we got the opportunity, you know what I'm talking about, that we need to at least address those other 2 items that needs to be part of a whole package to make the traffic situation with subdivisions more palatable and make more sense from an engineering traffic study point of view. And I think the elimination of whatever that wording is, you know, and I don't have it with me. I don't have it in front of me, but
I can get it.
I think that if Monday or whatever, y'all could print out that ordinance, you know what I'm talking about, and do the scratch throughs, you know what I'm talking about, that need to come out.
Okay.
That prohibit or discourage, you know, connectivity. And then I assume.
Yeah, we'll have to be careful how we word that, but yeah, something like that would work.
And then I assume that this section 13.3 is specifically out of the CDU in Baton Rouge on how to create.
That's just an example of wording that they use that really makes the developers provide connectivity to adjacent properties that is going to encourage a better street network.
Well, what part of this particular ordinance would not apply to our parish? I know the table wouldn't, because you know, we don't require walkable sidewalks in urban areas
Right.
and that kind of stuff, and we don't have zoning for suburban or rural, so.
If you guys are on board with that, I don't mind trying to do my best to formulate it into something that'll fit in our ordinance, and send it to y'all to look
Matter
at.
of fact, I like that so much that I don't know if, with the permission of this ordinance committee, if we all agree on the what we want, and we give him those provisions, why can't he just put that together and then send it to us in our inbox, and then we can just introduce it at a council meeting? We don't have to have another ordinance
Well,
committee meeting, because we all have agreed now what we want.
I guess in principle, do you agree in principle that if we strike we strike those part of our current ordinance that prohibits connectivity?
Yeah.
Meaning that we eliminate those parts that prohibit it, and then put a part in that says that there's a significant, you know, piece of land, and I don't know if we need to define significant or however we need to
I'll do
do it.
my best to word it, and I'll send
And
it
if
to
there's
y'all.
a small change you need to make, get with him.
You know, but I mean, and then he could send it all to us. We got, you know, we'd have 3 or 4 days before the meeting, and we could,
Yeah. There's no
we
need
could
to have a
discuss it,
committee.
we could discuss it in the group as a whole if there was something that somebody really had a problem with. But I think it's important
Which I think
that
is
if
great.
we're gonna address the traffic situation by requiring 2 entrances, we need to at least give the developers the access to generate, to make the tie into another subdivision, and encourage future development to always have that offshoot, so that, you know, we don't end up with a bunch of one-street subdivisions or one-entrance subdivisions in this parish, because that's what it's
Because what
going to.
happens now, and you guys probably know this, a developer will go in and develop a tract, and he will intentionally not provide connection to an adjacent property.
That's right.
They call them spike strips. They do it all the time.
Why do they do that, Andy? What's their thoughts?
Because they don't want that adjacent property to be able to utilize the infrastructure that they've put in to develop that
Look,
property, which is crazy.
I'll tell you for
They do it all
example.
Just being hateful.
No, it's, look, here's the deal. I'll tell you, Paradise Lakes.
It's trying to make it
Y'all know
more
where
private,
Y'all know where the old Thunderbird Beach is? Paradise Lakes. You go into Paradise Lakes, you go down there, the first street to the right. They tried to buy the piece of property between 1019 Thunderbird Beach Road and that deal, and couldn't acquire it. So they ran that street and they left a 2-foot buffer
Spike strip.
between that street and that other piece of property. Sam's brother-in-law bought one of those lots on that piece of property and cannot access South Seas or whatever that street is, has to go to 1019 with his driveway.
That's just being hateful.
Well, at the time, what they didn't want to do is provide all this infrastructure and then have somebody else sell 5 lots and tie into their subdivision. And so what we need to do is discourage that kind of, you know, behavior in the future.
Put that in the ordinance form.
I mean,
I agree. I think it's a good thing to do.
and let me tell you something, there's going to be some pushback. There are going to be some people that are not happy about that, but in the whole big picture of Livingston Parish and its future growth, it's more than important. Look, Watson's almost full. Make no mistake. There's a little rural land, but Watson, the growth is moving toward the east. So let's take, and towards your area, Bubba, you see all those new developments.
Oh, I guess.
Let's take what we've learned in these other areas of rapid growth and realize that, you know, you come look at this map and you look where Oak Hills is and Richmond Place and Easterly Lakes, and there are all these one-strip subdivisions that's this huge mass of houses, but you can't get from one to the other. And so where if you go to Baton Rouge and look at Broadmoor, and Broadmoor runs from Airline Highway to you know, I mean, Florida Boulevard, I mean, Oldham, and I mean, look at some of those areas, and all those were, I mean, there might be, you know, there was Sherwood Forest and Broadmoor and different filings, but all that grew out of connectivity. And I'm just saying that, you know, before we build all the land out in Livingston Parish, as it moves in those directions, let's learn from mistakes in the past and create a situation, I think, that'll benefit people in the future.
And the main thing I wanted to get across to you guys was, you know, just being flexible, because DOTD is such a big player in land development.
Yeah.
And their access management policy, they are trying very hard to eliminate any connections to a state highway. So if you had a situation where a developer did have access to Highway 16 and also to an unnamed parish road, DOTD is going to want them to use that as a connection and not Highway 16. So if you can only have one, more times than not, you really want that connection on the state highway, and you want to forget about that if DOTD is not going to allow both. So that's, you know, that's something we deal with every day.
Must, but then they're gonna come to you later on and say, look, here's the deal. You know, if I tie into this parish,
If I tie into
I'm gonna lose this
Henderson,
entrance here.
DOTD's not going to grant me a driveway permit on 16. I mean, and we were just talking about that. We really, you know, taking this a step further, we need those guys from District 62 involved to tell them what we're trying to do and say, guys, you have to relax your access management policies because we want more connectivity.
But we still should draw our ordinance like this, though.
I think so,
and
but
not
just
base
be
it on-
aware that
yeah.
there's going to be situations where
Yeah.
you're going to have people coming to you for a waiver for that very reason, because if they do connect to Smith Street, then guess what? They can't connect to Highway 16.
But if they
It's not
relax
gonna
that
give them a
policy
driveway.
later on in the years, that subdivision is already developed to tie into another, to connect and
Right.
have another.
Like I said,
You can put a road there, you just can't tie in.
So
That's what I'm saying. So if they ever relax that,
You make that Spike Street right up beside the parish road and leave it alone. You can always tie it in after the fact, but after you got that.
yeah, after you get the driveway.
and if they relax the, what'd you call them, asbestos?
Access management
Access.
policy.
So while we're talking about that, while we're talking about, you know, District 62 and that kind of stuff, is Wascom the main engineer in this area, or does?
He's just the engineer at that barn, but let's see, the guy over traffic is it Ryan Hoyt?
Is it Ryan Hoyt, or is it,
You'd be dealing with Hammond office and the district administrator
where's it, Scott Coles?
and headquarters, because that access management policy is coming down from headquarters, from Baton Rouge.
Yeah, Scott Coles would be the driveway permit.
Scott is,
Yeah,
Scott's the one doing
Scott's
the
doing
permit.
permitting now.
But I think that that's the next step we need to take, is a letter from Livingston Parish to District 62 telling them that we want more connectivity and we want to discuss their access management policy to where we can, because it may be that simple that something from the parish,
Yeah, well,
they
I guess
may say, yeah, we understand that.
we're trying to generate connectivity, and we're trying to generate.
And they're
you
trying
know,
to eliminate it.
We're trying to generate
We want more
connectivity, we're trying to
connectivity,
create
they want
more
less.
entrances, but your management, your access management policy
is
might actually
inhibiting that.
hinder our deal. So I guess we need to get this on the books first, then we probably after we get it on the law, then we probably as a resolution ought to ask that, we send this up, send a letter to District 62 as a council requesting,
And maybe inviting them to come to one of these meetings to talk about
and we
it.
can talk about it.
Okay.
So we go with, John kind of made his motion. I mean, is everybody, I'll second it. Y'all all good with sending it forward like that?
Yeah.
Having Eddie doing a little, you gonna do these things and get it back to us in an email and then,
It's next
I
Thursday.
think we don't have to have another ordinance committee meeting.
yeah, so you kind of gotta
it's
work
this
on it
coming-
Monday and get it to
It's
us.
7 days from today. We don't have a lot of time, so Monday, Tuesday be good.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to let this be the AFA show. We need to let it be have some MT in the deal too.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I guess my only concern is, I mean, I think everybody.
Billy, you might want to say who you are. I know-
Billy Taylor, Mac and Taylor, 28339 South Ross Road, Livingston,
Perfect.
Louisiana, 70754. I think everybody's on the same page of what needs to happen, and we're moving in the right direction. And as we've talked for 2 hours, you see how many different scenarios that there are, and you can't cover them all with one ordinance. But I guess just counting on a waiver is, I think I feel comfortable coming to you guys and y'all using common sense, but 8, 12 years down the road, maybe you decide y'all don't want to do this anymore and we got something that's on the ordinance. Hey, this is what the ordinance says, you can't do this, so then you might be handcuffing a lot of people. So I don't know if there's some wording we can put in here that, like Mr. Tracy was saying, if somebody's got 3 lots and they don't want to lose a lot for an entrance, that's one thing. All our developers, I think they're going to make that connection, but when you just really can't make it, I don't know if we can add some wording in here is my only thought. I think it's a step in the right direction. I just don't want to handcuff everybody.
Well, I guess
the DOT issue, if we can get some specific instances where you gotta do all this unless.
I guess the thing is, you and why Eddie's doing what he's doing, y'all need to put your head together and maybe identify some specific instances that you can't work through. You know what I'm talking about? There are a lot of things that can be worked through, but there are going to be some things that are just not workable. You know what I'm talking about? And maybe you could identify some workable things that would allow for an exception. But if that's, and then we'd have to discuss that. But I think you just can't. I think we just can't put language in there that just lets you wiggle out of it. I think you would have to identify a specific situation that would exempt you immediately. You know what I'm talking about? And I don't think you can. I don't think.
Say as long as the plan is consistent with the DOTD regulations or requirements.
Anyway, it's just a thought, something to consider.
Well, if allowed by DOT, because like I said, there's going to be times when multiple entrances that we try to submit is going to bite us in behind because they're going to say, oh, well, you don't need to tie to Highway 16. You just tie to Smith Boulevard.
Do that, but anyway.
That's going to be the only accident.
Well, and I think Tracy, I know Tracy had the same thought when we had the must versus may, that if you give people an out, they're gonna take it almost every time if it's gonna save them $1. You know what I'm talking about? So I think if you're gonna write out into the ordinance, you gotta have a specific instance that lets that out come into play. You just can't create 15 scenarios. You gotta have one particular thing that you can't work through. I think that's the only way that we could accept it. And Billy.
And that might get discussed.
I know because the past council, the group before us, kind of had a no waiver policy, and I'm thinking that I think the ordinances need to be broader, and then you look at stuff on an individual situation. It makes way more sense to me than to say, oh, we're going to write it down to the specifics and we're not going to give any waivers. I think you're just crazy to do that, and so I don't.
I agree. And then the other part's just having pressure on you guys. We go through the planning, you're denied basically because you didn't have the second entrance. Well, then you show up and when you're saying, oh, you overturned a waiver, they were denied, and now y'all approving the 300-lot subdivision, so that might put a little more pressure on you guys as well.
Well, but I think
anyway, we could work through it, and I think we may see some specific instances as we go through that we're asking for waivers, and maybe that
we may be able to generate those specifics.
I think as we go, as this thing,
maybe we can address it at that time.
I just think as we do it, and then we see problems, you know what I'm talking about, and we keep having the same waiver come to us over and over again, that it'd be easier then to identify them and address them. But
So I had the motion?
I think I'm good with what John. You want to second it? I'll second it. Whatever.
Across the board?
Yeah, we're not going to change that part. The only thing, I think, as this thing sits right here on this paper, we're good with that. We're talking about adding the elimination of the wording in the current ordinance that prohibits connectivity, and then we're going to add to it also
To encourage.
if there's property next to it that you stub into it and you don't put those, what do you call them, spike strips in them, and then we put a whole package together, not just the two entrance thing. We've done other things to encourage better traffic flow in these subdivisions, and I think that's the main.
So we're basically replacing our entire.
No, we're gonna add this, and we're gonna strike out. We're gonna add two different.
This is ordinance and
Create a new ordinance.
This is really, really good, working out all these bugs and problems over there on the west side as we develop the west side. When we make it to the east side, it's really, really going to be a well-developed parish over there, son. It's going to be some high-dollar property over there on my side.
I'm not trying
Y'all be all kind of connected.
Oh, man, it's going to be fantastic.
But I'm serious. You can sit there, look at the aerial, go to Watson, and look at Easterly Lakes and Richmond, and look at where all those houses are, and realize that you can't get from one subdivision to the other, and the backyards touch.
Right.
And realize that if we would have had connectivity at that point in time, then we'd have a much better traffic situation around there. The only point I was making, I'm not going to benefit a lot from this, my area, but as the growth continues to move, let's learn from the mistakes of the past and move forward.
Positive
I'm not going to
improvement.
benefit from it much either, but hey,
Hey, thank y'all.
You're
Thank y'all
welcome.
very much.
180 years.
Okay, so we got
Motion on the second.
we got a motion and a second. Can we call for the vote? Move forward with this.
Thank you, Eddie, for the hard work. Hey, Billy and Thomas, thank y'all so
Yep,
much.
thank y'all, and
Really
thank you for your input over there.
I know you don't get.
Thank everybody for coming.
Hey,
So, can we vote on that?
You want to specify again what we're voting on?
We're voting on this ordinance as it exists. Eddie's gonna go take our existing ordinance that all we're doing is adding this to it, right? He's gonna look at the areas that discourage connectivity or prevent it and strike those. And then he's gonna add a little section that promotes connectivity for future development on properties, adjacent properties to new subdivisions. And then he's gonna send all that to us before the meeting on Thursday so we can look at it. And I guess we, get on a group text or hash it or
We'll
whatever.
introduce it then.
And it's already introduced, we'll
that'll be the official introduction.
we'll introduce the amendments that we have on the current deal, and I think we could vote on it the same night.
Well, no, we got a call for the hearing.
The hearing will be that night, so we'll just do the introduction of the amendments that night, and we can vote on it at the
Right,
same
but to
time.
adopt the ordinance, you can't do it that night. We have to do it.
The ordinance already introduced. We're just amending this
Yep,
ordinance.
we'll amend it. We can.
We're gonna amend this ordinance, and we're gonna vote on that same thing Thursday night.
Yep.
Is that already on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. We
That's fine,
pushed
that's
this thing back so that we could have this meeting
Okay.
before the deal.
All right.
Mr. Talbert,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom.
Yes.
Mr. Matt.
Yes. And is there any other topics or subjects, subdivision?
Oh,
somebody-
no, I'm talking about
No,
subdivision.
you go. Anything. To me, I'm okay with open floor.
If y'all looked at the agenda coming out, there's an introduction of an amendment to the utility section of our ordinances. And if you go to the back page here, I got Colt to give you the law from the parish or from the state that allows us to do what we do. Currently, the parish got a LGAP grant back in 2011 for Graysbriar subdivision in my district. Graysbriar was a subdivision that everybody in there had a mechanical sewer treatment plant or septic tank with filter bed, depending on when their house was built.
Modad.
Yeah, Modad, whatever, and it all drained into a collection line.
Okay.
They got a LGAP grant, and that basically allowed them to put a gravity feed line to a lift station, which pumped that lift station pumped to the front of the Edmonds, and they upgraded that lift station that would get it to the parish sewer treatment system. What should have happened at that time is everybody in that subdivision should have tied into that system, because there is a law on the parish books and there's a state law, and everybody should have tied in, but we didn't. Not everybody did. I have a particular situation in there, and I've got a lady that lives on the corner of Graysbriar and Graysbriar, I guess is the only way I know it. She has a cave-in in her yard. Well, the investigation of the cave-in, it's the old collection line has failed. And so consequently, water has infiltrated her yard, gotten to the collection line. She's got a cave-in and a washout to the front ditch. So not only is there a hazard because she's got this, cave-in and this washout to the ditch, because some of those mechanical plants aren't inspected regularly, once they're put in, they're in forever. If your blower goes out, people don't replace them, and then septic tanks just don't work sometimes. And so basically what we've got is we now have raw sewage, whether it's been treated or not treated, at the bottom of this hole, and you can see it seeping into the ditch. So I got an item put on the agenda at the sewer district, went and visited with them. Their recommendation from the attorney was for me to contact the parish health unit. So actually the recommendation was for me to have the citizen, my constituent, contact the health unit. She did that. I met Mr. Keenan Glover out there. We looked at the situation. He had done some inquiries. To make a long story short, he said, all I can do is tell the lady who owns the property that the responsibility of fixing that collection line is hers. And she can't just fill the hole in with dirt because there are people's sewer running through that thing. And so we have a citizen who did the right thing, who tied in to the system. And because some people didn't tie in, she now has a sinkhole in her front yard with sewer in it, and in essence, it's her responsibility to fix. Now, I'm working through some issues with the sewer board, and we're trying to get them to go out and take care of it on the short-term solution to this particular, community health problem, I'm gonna call it. But we have a parish ordinance that allows or requires that, with certain utilities, if you're within 300 feet of them, you're required to tie into them. And state law, actually, there's a state law, that our parish law just mimics state law. The reason I put this attachment on it for you is that I want everybody to be aware that what we're doing is well within the law. We have an ordinance that says you got to tie in, but we have no way to make anybody do anything. Because we tell you you need to tie in, but that's the end of it. You know what I'm saying? We can't, if you don't tie in, you don't tie in. So in doing some research, whatever, we don't put people's utilities up. We don't provide them electricity. We don't provide them water. We don't provide them sewer. We don't provide them gas. The only thing we provide is an occupancy permit. So what I'm proposing is that in these, I'm not out looking for problems. I don't think any council is looking for problems. But when you have a situation that raises its head and it becomes a health, a community health problem, that the parish could then require those individuals not connected, give them 90 days notice to connect. And if they don't, then we need to revoke their occupancy permit. State law allows for fines, and it gives you pretty broad strokes on what you can do. It just seems to me the only thing that we really do is provide occupancy permit. And once you remove the person's occupancy permit, then legally they're not supposed to be residing there. I'm fairly correct in that. At that point in time, you have tons of options open to you. You know what I'm talking about? Getting their water turned off, getting their gas turned off, getting their electricity turned off, getting them evicted. I mean, and it's not about being a bully. It's not about doing, but if you had a gas leak, we wouldn't just let your neighbor have a gas leak at their house and not do anything about it. So what's the difference between a gas leak and a sewer leak? I mean, you know what I'm talking about? They both create health hazards in their own light. You know what I'm talking about? So I think that what I'm going to propose and what on the amendment is to allow that. Now, I know it seems heavy-handed, but if you had a situation, and trust me, this isn't like the first option. We've looked at, tons of options to get this done, and we're down to a situation that, look, I talked to the mayor at Denham. I talked to B.J. Clark, the person that runs his sewer department. I talked to James Ray, who used to run it, back for sewer 1 and 2 back in the day. I mean, and they'll all tell you that's the problem. There's no ability to make anybody do anything when they're specifically supposed to do it. So the only thing they can do right now is bill you. If you're within 300 feet, they bill you for it. And you're responsible to pay it. You know what I'm saying? And there are people who have paid for years and never tied in because it's just easier. But it doesn't eliminate the health problem or that sometimes is created by not tying in to the sewer. So I just wanted to, I think there was some misunderstanding or whatever about what this ordinance was. It's not about going around looking for problems. It's about being able to address a health concern when it raises its head. And I think, AFA's the engineer for the sewer district, and I think they can speak plainly to some of the problems that have occurred in the past that we need to be able to address.
Yeah, like what Mr. Gary's talking about is when they came through that grant, all the people that were below the low to mid to moderate income level, the grant was able to pay to connect them to the new collection system. That's state law, federal law. The people that were above the low to moderate income, they were responsible for the couple $1,000s that it cost to connect their house to the new system. Legally, sent notices, hey, you got to connect. Some of them did. A handful of them didn't. 6 or 8, 9, I don't know how many or never connected. So their sewer is still going through the old
Was that,
collection system.
that was in this, you're talking about in this one specific
That was
instance that he's talking about. You know,
When we did the sewer expansion, John, you'll remember
And did.
the pain we had trying to make people
and,
tired.
and still, right, but I don't recall some people getting paid, you know, paying for something.
Oh, this was a community, this was a
different.
grant, this was a
Yeah,
healthcare grant.
this was a grant, yeah, the city didn't pay for anybody to come. They were all responsible for making it on.
And I guess the thing about it is
Even some today haven't, probably still
There's
have.
still a bunch that
Still have.
but
they're getting the sewer bill.
and the thing about it is, you better believe if it becomes a hazard, if it becomes if you're dumping your raw sewer in somebody else's front yard, it becomes it's a different
This is
situation.
a horrible situation.
It is.
Because this woman was above the lower median income, she paid to have her sewer connected, but one of her neighbors.
down
several
upstream
neighbors
didn't.
And it just so happens that the line busted in her yard. Imagine how, that sounds like my result. I like to say something.
Tracy, go ahead, buddy.
Motion to adjourn?
No, unfortunately, this is something we're not going to be able to dodge. It's my understanding that the old system isn't being maintained at all, right?
Homeowner association owned it.
I'm talking about you're talking about a parish-wide ordinance, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
So the old, I guess if you're connected to, if you're in a sewer district, then I guess, does everywhere in the parish have a system where you can connect into? Or is it-
no, I mean, it's
Just in this district?
It's just in certain areas. I mean, once this ordinance is passed and done, then if the city of Walker had a specific problem, they couldn't get somebody to tie in, you know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Then they could come to the parish and get help. The city of Denham could do the same thing. It would probably be more wide-reaching than just this district if somebody chose to utilize it, I suspect. But the main purpose of this particular situation is to give the ability to solve this sewer problem. And it specifically, state law addresses sewer. I mean, you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, so,
But right now, it's a state issue. I mean, that's the state law that says 300 feet you have to.
No, it's a
tie.
parish law.
You have a parish law.
We mimic
that
it.
says the same thing.
It's a parish law. And I imagine the city of
But
Denham's
there's
got
no
an ordinance.
repercussions.
But the parish don't
we're
say
not
pull
doing it.
your
And look,
occupation.
here's the thing, if we don't address it now, because they're not maintaining the old system,
Nobody's maintaining.
so it's going to get worse. We can't bury our head about this thing. We can't just go, well,
It's a legitimate.
we,
So all
but
you
I
want to do
also,
is just put teeth in it where you could have some.
well, yes, but I
That's
will
what
say
you're
this
saying,
too.
right?
I hesitate to pull somebody's occupancy permit in 90 days.
Well,
That, I mean,
And I
I
kind of,
hesitate to do that.
I understand where you're coming from. I guess my point is these individuals in this particular situation have had 6 years to make the tie-in
Well,
in
yeah.
Manhattan. So.
And you're correct. I guess this wasn't us.
what
Yeah, I mean,
more
They should have said,
what
you
more
got
options?
3 years, because, to connect to the system can cost an individual anywhere from $1,500 to,
25.
yeah,
Yeah, it
$2,500.
could be $1,500 to $2,500. There's
So,
no
I
doubt.
mean, I'm not comfortable if giving somebody, an elderly couple or someone on a fixed income, a mandate for 90 days and a $2,500 bill. I mean, that's just me.
Well,
I'm just saying, I mean,
hey,
but I do understand that
Fixed income.
we have to do it. Guys, we have to do it.
I think that we do need to talk about this because something needs to be done, but like you're saying, to force some people to say that some people don't have to pay and some people do, just because they got out there and worked hard and
Well, I mean, that's
done some
neither,
good things in life.
but that's
and
neither,
they're
that's
more
gone at
fortunate.
this point.
I just don't think that's quite fair.
Well,
that grant's no longer in effect, so everybody's got to pay.
Yeah, everybody got, but I guess the thing about it is this, I just wanted to clarify what was
I just
being
don't
done. I guess
if
what I
the
want to
current
say.
system is legal, that you should be forced to have to tie in. I think if the sewer district
Well, no, actually, if the
would fund the tie-in, then I'd be more apt to be open to it.
I think if the administration would have been more diligent in the application of their grant process, I think.
My biggest thing is, I try not to play attorney, but I don't know if it's legal for the parish or the sewer district to spend public funds to tie in.
That's the problem.
That is the biggest problem. Now, but here's one thing I thought of, and I don't know if I mentioned the other night, Gary, but it would be legal when you have a legit public health issue.
That's where I'm
If the
coming from.
parish or the sewer district had the funds, you make the connections.
And don't we have?
And you send them a bill. If they don't pay it, you put a lien on the property.
Don't we have funds and collected as a tax as a whole?
I don't know.
For that?
I think
We need to make sure that was legal.
I think what we need to do is.
Tracy, did you have something to say?
I did, yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
you go, buddy. Just butt right in. You know, next time I want you to sit up here because I think that
I
chair.
can't.
I think you can.
I guess
Who's seat?
I guess what
There's no
I
rules.
guess
I'm
what
listening
doing
to
is-
my clerk.
I guess what my point was that I wanted to kind of get it out there. Let's think about it.
I think something's got to be done.
We're gonna have the introduction next Thursday, and we'll defer that. We can do another one of these 4-week deals if you can have a committee meeting kind of in between them to address this specific issue.
Here's my thing, and this is what I want to get to this.
No, you go.
This
Go ahead.
is the point. We can't ignore it because the old system is failing. It's like driving a car and not changing the oil. You know, you know how long, you don't know how long you got, but you know the miles are limited. It's going to die. We have to at some point force people who are in a district to get onto the new system, because it's just what's happened in this neighborhood is going to happen again and again and again and again, and it's just going to increase because they're not working on the old system. They're not repairing it, and nor should they. They shouldn't. I mean, especially in places where they have a new system in line. What I would like to see, and this is just an idea, you give a 36 month time frame. You got to give them more time. You got to give people money, because at that point, then you pull it. Or you look for grants or something you can do, look for stuff in that meantime. You have to give a time frame to people, but we have to change it. We have to do something. Now, in this particular case, something needs to happen yesterday.
Right, but I think in the long term, you know, that on some of those stuff, it could definitely be different.
I mean, one thing I'd like to say too is you know, this situation is addressed in new subdivisions. Correct or incorrect?
Yes.
This here was a subdivision that was adopted a while back by the parish. And to me, this particular collection line, I mean, this is just my thoughts, it's almost like an open ditch that runs through the parish where people's individual sewer systems drain into it and the parish maintains that. For this particular case, to get through this, to me, the Department of Public Works needs to go out there and fix this. That's just my opinion.
I hear you, and trust me, we talked to Sam about it, and Sam, you know, we kind of went to the sewer district. I mean, well, trust me, we've been everywhere. And I know that you got somewhere to go.
720, I got to go.
And legally, if we legally can do that, because I don't know we can, but if we legally can do that, that's fine. But you have to understand the overall picture that Mr. Talbert's trying to get to, and I'm going to go out and agree with him on this.
I'm okay for new, but the one thing that I hate is...
have to agree with him on this.
Wow. Well, the one thing that I hate is this. If you, say 2008, I ran into a serious problem today that I have to do more research on, but it's an example sort of like this. A person was issued a permit, put down a legal sewer system in 2008, it was inspected and passed, and everything's fine. And now all of a sudden in 2018, somebody from DHH goes out there and says, hey, this is no good. We're going to cut your electricity off if you don't change this. And they're on a fixed income. There's nothing right about that in any way, shape, or form.
But why was DHH going out there?
Because there's an issue with water buildup because there's a drainage problem. Okay? Because we got drainage problems on the east side of Livingston Parish, major problems that need to be addressed.
Yeah, we don't have those in Walker.
But what I'm saying is we got to kind of think about this a little bit and make it right for all. And I think that new systems, if you're within 300 feet and it's a brand new house or Or if
If
your
it's a brand
electricity
new
got
house,
cut off and you sold it and the system's outdated and you got to tie back in, well then yeah.
But I
But
believe
if
this.
something-
I think this is the law as it is right now. I might be wrong. If you build a new house and you live in those areas, you got to connect.
Right.
If you sell your house and you're not connected, then the next person's got to connect. And if they don't, then we're going to make that happen. But is that true?
Yeah, that's right.
So if they sell the house, they got to connect. So at which point when you're building a house, buy a MODAD or pay an impact fee. You'll get cheaper connecting.
Right.
All right? So really the only problem is the people who need to connect, who already live there, because they can't stay on a system that is not being maintained. We can't bury our head in the sand on this one. You know, we can't. So, anyway.
Yeah, we'll talk
You
about
want me to
this
sit
more.
down, John, or stand?
I think we all need to.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a motion?
Well, I'm sorry.
We have a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thanks for everybody for coming.
We have a second right there.
Don't make it through Gary, man.
I made a motion, Bubba second.
We have a motion, we got a second. I call for the vote. All in favor?